because it's just going to be a helpful thing. So just to let you know that that's out there.
Cool. Yes, executive function is very important. Make sure all teachers are aware of the IEP. I think it's really good to ask your team, how's this done? Because we want to make sure everybody, when I say everybody, I mean your child's needs are still there when they leave the main classroom, right? So your child might need supports, at specials, in the hallway, right? In the cafeteria, at recess, in the bathroom, on field trips, on the bus, things like that. And so I think it's great, ask your team, how are you going to know that all the teachers know about it? Like, is there going to be an email and everybody says, yes, or is there a sheet that everyone's signing saying, yes, I've gotten Billy Bob's, IEP and I know what's going on. And then just to remember that behavior support plan needs to be consistent across all those environments.
And oftentimes teachers will write up what accommodations the child is supposed to have, if there are any kind of behavioral kinds of things, what those are, the way to respond to those, whatever that may be, and etc. They put that on a single sheet of paper or more. It takes more. But then they put that out to all the teachers that have interaction with the kiddo. And, we've talked to some school districts where the people in the cafeteria have a list of kids that specific foods that, they will absolutely not eat because that, they're pizza kids and that's all they use pizza. But, just different kinds of things like that to keep people aware of why your child's reacting the way they are at the lunch line or whatever. Just to keep people informed. Oftentimes, the one person that gets missed is the custodian, and it's amazing how often, there was a study done, how often this custodian actually touches each kid in the building. It's kind of an amazing thing. So, folks like that make a difference. So, and Jen has a story about a kiddo that touched a principal, right?
Oh, yeah, just recently. It was very, very disappointing. There was a substitute principal, and a student was having, some challenges going on. And in the behavior plan, you're not supposed to touch the kiddo, especially on the shoulder, for various reasons. But one of the reasons is, due to some stuff that happened in the past, and you just don't do the physical. And yeah, so unfortunately, the substitute didn't know, and touched him on the shoulder. And yeah, not good stuff ensued. And a punch, and suspension, and all of a sudden having another meeting, and I was just like, oh goodness. And one of our tips right towards the end addresses this too, is a cheat sheet. Wouldn't that be great if there was a cheat sheet for any substitute teachers and substitute paras, right? That's not the full IEP, because, as a substitute teacher, you're going to have, time to read like all the big long IEPs for all the kiddos that day. But how about like the cheat sheet information that has that important information, and the behavior plan?
Especially behavior.
Absolutely, and any sensory issues, things like that. So that would be so great. So yeah, we got to have everybody aware of what's going on. I know it's that team effort, right? It's like, I always say, my village is like, I don't know, a town, right? A city of people. I will bring you all in to help. Please have discussions about placement, referred to as least restrictive environment, LRE. It is a team decision based on data and documentation of needs, supports, and services. It's not based on availability. So it's not based on what the school has available. It is based on the data and documentation and needs of your child. And you can have conversations about the continuum of placement options. That's kind of the term that's used. And that can be, classroom, program, what levels of support are in those. So, please know that you can have those discussions. Do you guys have any questions yet? Are you guys taking out? Are you awake? No, just kidding. You all look awake. I just want to see if you have a question about placement or anything like that. You can. All right. These guys are good.
Yeah.
14. So the IEP can include supports for school personnel. What supports are needed to enable your child to do all these positive things that you see on that screen? So yes, the IEP is about supports for your child, but it's also about supports for school personnel. And so are there any supports that would be beneficial for staff to have to help meet your child's goals. I've had parents talk to their teams about getting some additional behavior-related training. A parent told me that she had an autism specialist come in and talk about autism interventions. Parents have told me they had someone come talk to the classroom about seizures, asthma, social skills. Somebody wanted extra presentation about anti-bullying type things and making friends. So, gosh, just all sorts of things there. So, there can be supports for school personnel. And then, I like this one. I like all of them, but I like this one. Ask for data to be provided on the progress reports. So, staff should calculate the goal percentages of how your student's doing, how your student's performing, and then that data should be on all of your progress reports. So you should always have 3 numbers, and this goes into that, goal slide too. Those 3 numbers are your baseline or your starting point. So if my son has a goal, he's starting right now, let's say at one goal, he's starting at 33%. That's kind of where he ended last year, so this year he's starting at 33%. And then how is he doing? What's the data say? So is he at 35? Is he at 40? I'm anxious to see the next progress report to see where he's at. And then of course you need to know that number of what that suspected outcome is. So we want to try to hit 80%. He's starting at 33, and then I always need to be told where he's at now. Make sense? So make sure you have those numbers on your progress reports. If you don't, just ask for that calculated data to be there. I think that helps you have a better conversation about your goals.
So if you're at, let's say, 40%, and we know that in a year's period of time, we want to get to 80%, because the IEP is a year long, supposedly. So if that's the case, kind of calculate in your own head, where should we be about halfway through here? So 40 to 80 is 40, half that's 20, so at 60%, halfway through, is that about, I think I'd ask, is that kind of what you're thinking, guys? Team? Are we going to be halfway through the year, are we going to be about 40%-ish? Or what are you thinking? Now, if it includes, if you do your IEP in the spring, and you've got a whole summer in there, remember that you're going to lose skill in the summer. It's just the way it is. Every kid does. We all would if we didn't work all year round. But kind of figure that in. But understand that you're going to try to figure out how that's going to be looking, because what you want to do is based on the baseline and then those percentages, you're going to want to know are we making progress or not, and are we making sufficient of progress so we know we're going to get to the 80%. And if not, maybe we need to rewrite the goal to do something different because we're not moving along the way we need to. Okay?
Absolutely. I think that's important. Like that lack of expected progress. It's a good conversation to have. Maybe your idea of what lack of expected progress is different than mine. And so I think that's something that we just don't think about asking the team, when we're discussing goals. And so I'd add that in there. Hey, just so we can talk about, the lack of expected progress. What are we thinking here? What's appropriate, what's not appropriate, right?
Because if we don't get there, then you'd sure like to have everybody on board that maybe we need another meeting to figure out a better way or a different way.
Right.
Maybe it's not better, it's just different because this one isn't working.
Right. You could look at instruction, you could look at, accommodations. There's so many pieces to look at, right? Maybe your kiddo needed a foundational skill before that, so you got to back up a little bit, or, just lots of different things. We are to Sandy, but we have a few transition slides.
Which none of you are even close to. So I'm gonna go quickly because you're not. On the other hand, I do think that you need to know that it's coming. And we don't want to skip this because it's a major part from the time that the school year in which your child turns 16, that school year is supposed to start with the IEP transition in it. So, for some of you that's closer than others, but it will come. So you have documents that I want to make sure that we talk about just a little bit. There's one that's black with red and blue ink, and it's called the Transition Planning Document. Oh, how unique is that? Anyway, a according to law, these are the things that need to be in your child's transition plan. Now maybe, this has been in the law since 2004, but it's possible that by the time your child gets to this age, it will change as to what needs to be in there. But right now, this is what's in the transition plan. The law requires 2 assessments, a minimum of, it says more than 1, so 2 assessments per year. Those assessments are not like the MDT assessments. These assessments are about your child's interests, your child's preferences, your child's strength as an employee or a student. Those are the kinds of things we're talking about. What we're talking about in a transition plan is post-secondary goals. So post-secondary meaning after high school. What are our goals after high school? And it's never too early to start talking about what do you want to be? You know, when you grow up, what do you want to be? Get the kids starting to think about that, because at some time, they're going to need to talk about that. What do I want to be when I grow up? What do I want to do? Where do I want to live? How do I want to live? Am I capable of living on my own? Those are the kinds of things that are going to be coming their way. So there's goals and objectives. There's specific ways that those need to be written and so forth. I'm not going there because you're all too young. But and then there's a section on needs. So we would talk about in instruction, in related service, in community. What are the needs of the student? What do we still need to learn? What kinds of things still need to be kind of worked on? And then involvement of other folks. So that's the time when we're in a transition plan when we talk about, have you applied for developmental, have you applied for DB? Have you applied for SSI? Have you, is your student on Medicaid? Are you thinking about, I realize it's a little ways ahead because he's 17 and this happens at 19, but have you started talking about, at least between mom and dad, about guardianship? Is that something we want to do? We have a person in our office, her name's Nina Baker. If you've not heard of Nina, you will or should. Nina is the wizard of all wizards when it comes to those applications. So if you've not made application, or if you've been refused on the application, don't panic, just go to Nina. Nina is amazing. She's, number one, she's a good listener, but she walks families through all those applications. And if you want to talk about guardianship, she talks about all, I think there's like 7 layers that you could, select from. I haven't bothered to learn any of that because Nina's there. So it's kind of like, yes, thank you, God. I've got Nina. But anyway, Nina Baker, N-I-N-A, Baker, A-K-E-R. Nina's at our office, and she's going to go part-time, and thank goodness the part-time she's keeping is that part. So if you ever have a question about any of those adult service kinds of things, any application kinds of things, Nina Baker's the person that you're going to want to talk to at our office. So don't hesitate to give her a call. She's wonderful. Wonderful. I also have a slide about graduation, and you have paperwork that says graduation options for students with disabilities. In Nebraska, there are 2 ways to graduate for our kiddos. And some school districts will assume that if your child gets A's and B's on their work in classroom, academic stuff, that they're capable of graduating. However, if their IEP is not completed, so let's say they get A's and B's, but their social skills, they're not at a place where they're making their goals and objectives on their IEP, or independent living, or whatever the case may be, then graduation doesn't have to happen at age 18, or when the rest of the seniors graduate. You can go through graduation. You can do the cap and gown, you can do the walk across the stage, you can have the party, all good. What you don't want to do is accept a signed diploma. A signed diploma means that you're done. Your school district's done, they don't have anything more to do with you, that's it, period, the end. And if you call me in August and say, I didn't know, Sandy, I won't remember we were here. So you could probably get by with it. But point is I can't change it. If you accept a signed diploma, it's done. Okay? If your child's IEP is not completed, if they're still working on skills, don't accept the signed diploma, and you're going to want to talk about an 18 to 21 program or activities. And I hate to use the word program because it's gotten kind of a misnomer in that there's a lot of school districts that call it an 18 to 21 program, and I'm not being negative, I'm just saying that the kids all have to fit, like all the round pegs need to fit the square hole, so to speak. So it isn't made individualized for your kiddo. It's a program that is made for 18 to 21-year-olds, and it's things like learning how to do laundry, learning how to cook, making the bed, vacuuming, and all the rest of the housekeeping kinds of things that you want to do for an independent living kind of thing. But if your child, for example, is interested in something where they could take a college course, even at a junior college, that's where my grandson is, at a junior college, and they offer a program where you don't even have to pay sometimes for the course, you just have to audit it, and you can see if you can do coursework. If that's what you're thinking, if that's what your kiddo's thinking about what they want to be when they grow up, and they want to go to college to do it, you can try out some things. That is not fitting the round peg in the square hole. That's thinking out of the box. So 18 to 21 activities could be just about anything, as long as it fits your child and it's working on the kinds of things that have not been accomplished in the IEP. So when you get to 16 years old and older, the IEP is probably more important than it's ever been. Those goals and objectives are probably more important than they've ever been in regard to the fact that it facilitates whether they can maintain supports and services for a period of time. And they can stay until the school year in which they turn 21. So whatever that is. Now, if they're turning 21 July 25th or August 1st, they probably do not have the following year. But if it's after the school year starts, then they get that whole year. Does that make sense? Okay. So I want to tell you about that because in Nebraska it's a little different than some other places. The other thing I want to talk about is the summary performance. Again, you won't be looking for that until your kiddo is going to graduate from high school, whether that's 21 or 18, whatever it is.
And this is one of those things that is not on your IEP document. This is one of those special things that we want you to know about.
And I really push it when I can because I cannot tell you how many parents have said to me, I've never heard it. My kid graduated, 2 years ago, and I didn't get a summary performance. Well, should have. Legally, it's not a part of the IEP. However, what I would say to you is, at the age that your kiddos are now, maybe not 5, but 7 on up, or 8, I would recommend to you that you ask your staff about maybe a Google page, a Google Doc, excuse me, I'm not a technique, a Google Doc or something like that that's not in the IEP, because the IEP, if you do a page in the IEP that's just for note-taking, that doesn't go along. I mean, nobody looks at the IEP from 3 years ago or 2 years ago. Maybe you do, but most teachers don't because they're concentrating on the one they help write. But this document would be a document that could go with your kiddo year after year after year after year. And what we could collect are pieces of information that would be valuable for when they graduate, when they leave school. Like the things that an employer would need to know that would make them successful. And nobody wrote it down anywhere. The kinds of things that would make them, successful in college, the kinds of things. Anyway, we didn't do that for my grandson, and I just kicked myself all over the place. But anyway, I know better now. So part of the summary performance, or what the summary performance is really, is just information about what would make your kiddo successful. So what I would need to know are things that that didn't work, and we know they didn't work, or we tried them 3-4 times, no way, no how, forget it. Put those on there. The things that really did work and continue to work, keep track of that. Let's put that in and just kind of keep an eye on it. Information, there are, school districts do not have like the IEP document is pretty The state has an SRS document that most school districts use. Some of the school districts in the metro do not. They made their own IEP document, but every school district has a different template for the SOP, the summary performance, because there's no legal requirement to have the same one. So I would say to you that, I will take that back. In some school districts, what they do in the IEP will populate the summary performance at the end.